Reading is political. It has been and always will be inherently political, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, hi, my name is Cassidy Van Gundy. I am an author. This is my little channel on the internet. It's called Kutiefly. I write books, I write scary stories, I write short stories. If you've been here, you know all that. And if you are new, welcome. There's my little intro. I am also somebody who has a female reproductive system, who has medical complications, and who is part of the LGBTQ community and who was married to an immigrant. So, all of that compounding factors together, this election has been pretty heavy for me. I have been taking the past couple of days to try to process everything really and take care of myself, take care of my family, and plan out our next steps for for what we're gonna do if certain things happen, if certain promises come to fruition, if certain things happen, how we are going to navigate this new space, given that when we now know that some family members aren't safe people to be around, things like that. So this couple days have been pretty intense. I'm sure if you are somebody like me, they have also been pretty intense for you as well. If this doesn't affect you or you think it doesn't affect you, I would really encourage you to reevaluate this, because politics affects everyone, and that's kind of like what this video is going to be about today. First and foremost, this video is in direct response to some TikToks I've been seeing. I don't post on TikTok because I don't like making short form content, but I consume a lot of short form content. So I've been seeing a lot of people, book accounts, primarily white book accounts, complaining about people talking about politics in book spaces, and that they just want to get back to books and get back to reading, and because it's their escapism, yada, 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 whatever. And rightfully so, a lot of people have been pushing back against that. It's a bit of an insensitive claim to make right now, in my opinion. I think it's very telling on where your morals and your character lies and like who you voted for this election. So yeah, maybe it doesn't feel like a big deal to you. um, but I just wanted to get on this like technicality about reading not being political, because I think that is such a foolish claim to make. Even the books that you're claiming to read that aren't inherently political do have politics in them. The person I'm thinking about in particular, the account that I saw in particular, is somebody who's a big fan of A Court of Thorns and Roses, of these super like fantasy romantasy type books, which I found ironic because I'm not as big of a reader of fantasy as I used to be, and I will admit that. But if you read fantasy, a lot of times it involves like the main character overcoming some sort of oppressor or oppressive force, or clashes between different races of magical beings, stuff that is inspired by real life atrocities and events, um, trickles its way into these fantasy books. And although it might have a dragon on it, or it might have dragons in it, it is still, that conflict is still a key point of many of those books. So I thought that was silly. uh, and I just kind of wanted to point that out, that even in your made up world, a lot of times authors will use vehicles of oppression as the main plot device. Like if you read Babel, or my husband reads more sci-fi fantasy than I do, but he has a copyright here. He has a copyright here of the priority of the orange tree. Like what? I myself am somebody who reads a lot of horror stories, scary stories, horror books. And horror has always been a mirror to society, right? Horror is always meant to reflect the fears and concerns of a society, intentionally or unintentionally. I think it's funny that there are some people, even in the horror community, touting this when some of the most popular monsters stories of all time have been critiques of otherness and othering other folks and what that feels like, and how the monster reflects that, or like in a way that is trying to negate those stereotypes or embraces them. You know what I mean? Think of Frankenstein. Hello. that that in itself was a reflection of the author's feeling of otherness, and guilt over like killing their mother in a miscarriage. And it talks about like how we others people in society and put them in fringes groups. It's crazy. I have my current, well, I say my current read. I'm currently reading so many things, but even this book, like I just bought this. I bought this from Story Studio Chicago's event that I just posted about, right? And even in this one, this All's Well is a interpretation on a woman's struggle to be seen and heard, especially because she's living through chronic pain, and how doctors are dismissive of her body and like what's going on with her. And because doctors are just kind of dismissive when it comes to women's pain in general, especially if you're a woman of if you're a woman and a person of color. That Yeah, so this is inherently political, right? And it's a fantasy story. So just because you're not reading, like, if you're not reading nonfiction, doesn't mean like what you're reading about isn't inherently political. That makes no sense to me. In addition to this, it's not just books, right? It's just media as a whole. Media as a whole is not created in isolation. Even unintentionally, the author's worldview or perceptives or lived experiences is going to come through that book. I can say that myself as somebody who writes creatively. There's so much of myself in my books. It's hard to separate sometimes, and it might not be obvious to the reader, but reading it back for myself, I see things that I didn't pick up in the moment, and that makes a lot of sense. People don't exist in a vacuum, right? Your existence is not free from politics. It never has been and never will be. Bad policy kills people. Policy directly affects your day-to-day life, whether you like to admit it or not. I think there's a lot of folks, and particularly folks that look like me, who see politics as like a sports game, and you're either cheering for a red team or a blue team, and it, like the Super Bowl, sometimes your team's going to win, sometimes your team's going to lose, right? But in their heads, in the reality, it's just a like temporary state. But that is not true. There are policies that were put in place in the past that we're still seeing the ramifications of today. These sorts of decisions can affect the health of people for generations. It can affect the mental well-being, the safety of people for generations to come. Prejudice and bigotry has lasting effects, real-world effects on folks, keeping them in situations of poverty, keeping them in situations of instability, and I just don't know how people can't approach these things with a sense of empathy. And because they see it as like a sports game, they are detached from reality. That is just the plainest way I can put it. I have a lot of personal thoughts about the way certain people vote, and part of me wants to get into them in this video, but another part of me doesn't, just because I want people to really hear me, and I don't want people to be turned off because they feel insulted. But this is the honest to God truth. I think people sometimes forget. I've been trying to talk to family members this week about concerns or escalating concerns that might happen in the near future. And those are being dismissed and poo pooed. And I feel personally very frustrated by this because I am somebody who, I don't think they remember, but at one point in time, I was a teaching assistant at Boston University, a renowned research university, for a for multiple classes, but one specifically on sustainable economic development, right? And the people that voted differently from me, cited economic concerns for doing so. And when I try to explain to them the facts, the core truth of policy and how it will impact them in the future and how it might be different from what they were sold, their brains turn off and they become very dismissive. And it's hard for me because I've put in those hours of research myself and study and learning from experts, talking to experts, and then trying to relay that knowledge in a way that people can understand. And it's like people don't actually want to hear it, right? Because they have this sense of loyalty to whatever team they're rooting for, because if it's a personal aesthetic, I don't know, because it speaks to some of their core values that they don't want to admit out loud, or if they do admit out loud, they get frustrated when you tell them that they sound like they're fear mongering. They sound like hateful. They sound unempathetic. And it's gotten to a point now where I have to think about the safety of myself and my husband from people that I thought I was safe around. And clearly that's not the case. So that's hard. And I think that I don't know. I think we should be moving with grace, and I'm trying my best now to reach out to people that I know are affected like I am, who are upset like I am, who feel desperate like I am, and I've been trying to reach out and message folks. I'm very lucky to be living in a city with lots of other people who think like me, who move like me, who discuss these sorts of topics or care about these sorts of things like I do. So I am relying on that to rebuild a sense of community, I think. And I've been trying to do that for the past couple of years, truthfully. But now I just feel like it's necessary than ever before. And I do think the book community could be a facet for that. I am starting a book club on my street, like in my neighborhood, right? That in itself is an aspect of community. That is a way we can build and support one another, even if it just starts off as a book club, right? That can lead to some sort of neighborhood camaraderie where we take care of each other and look out for each other for other things. Even that is an avenue for coalition, I guess. And I don't think people think about it that way, but it's important, right? So even bonding over something like books can help you find people in your life that can support you in that way. I just wanted to hit on this too, that this isn't limited for books. This is also other forms of media as well. I think it's funny that people look towards, because I did this too, for TV and television and all this for a sense of escapism, right? Or a sense of whatever. But even that is like difficult, especially with these major franchises. Like, I find it so funny that there's so many like Star Wars fans that don't actively engage in how political of a drama that Star Wars actually is. And it's literally about like an impressive empire trying to take control of the galaxy. And it's wild. People miss the plot. I don't know. For me, what worked for me, and again, this is really personal and weird, so please don't judge. But I found this new anime last night that generally made me feel better. And I thought it was going to be really dumb at first. And the premise is a little like problematic, I think, but that's just me personally. But I ended up enjoying it so much that it made me feel better. So this show is called Kiss Him Not Me. And it's about somebody who likes to be a little bit of a voyeur, I guess, when it comes to two men showing affection. And then all of a sudden they get hot and all these men want them. And it's like a reverse harem type show. I don't know. I love romance animes. Some of them are problematic as hell, and I will admit to that. And I feel like whatever. But the way and the fat phobia in it is a little insane. But they do address that in the show. And they do it in a way that I think is pretty nuanced for Japanese anime. So love that. Um, but that show is still political in a sense because at its core is about queerness, right? Like this whole anime is playing with gender, playing with queerness. A character cross dresses at one point, or this girl's actively shipping men together. She has a queer suitor chasing after her affections as well. So that is still inherently political because unfortunately people's identities and sexual orientations are politicized. And it's not the fault of the people who are in those communities, it's other communities who just don't want them to exist for whatever reason. I don't know. Um, because of archaic beliefs. But anyway, so yeah, so that's inherently political too, right? But again, for me, it provides a sense of escapism because these things are not demonized. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel like I can just kiki and giggle and be silly. And that's why even something like a romance genre, right, can still be political and escapism for folks, but you can't disconnect the two. And that's what I'm trying to like have people recognize in this video. I don't know. I hope this reaches the right audience. I don't know if it will. I'm afraid it won't, and people are going to yell at me in the comments, but whatever. I'm not even going to respond at this point. I feel like the tensions are really high right now. So even if I just talk about the elections, people are going to get mad because I'm calling out their faves. But like, this is stupid, guys. Like, this is all so stupid. I felt my feelings. I've processed things. I've journaled quite extensively. And I think that my priority right now is to not give emotional labor or attention to people who don't deserve it, who are committed to misunderstanding me and people like me, and who don't care about people like me, or who, you know what I mean? And those people that claimed like, oh, I love you, but I'm going to vote against all of your best interests. They don't actually love you. They're just covering up for their own guilt or ignorance. So there's that. Um, yeah, so that's where I'm at right now, and that's how I'm moving forward in my life. For others, they might move differently. I don't know, but that's how I'm moving in my life. So yeah, reading is political. Existence is political. Unfortunately, you cannot separate yourself from politics because politics affect your everyday life. It's not just like, oh, even if it's just like, oh, how high do you want the streetlights to be in this certain area, right? But now it's also like, we want to dissolve gay marriages. We want to deport a huge amount of people. We want to do XYZ, right? Those those are big things, and I hope some of these things don't come to fruition. I don't. I I hope. But we'll see. It's hard because with the House and the Senate being red as well, and the Supreme Court being Supreme Court, I feel like a lot of things that were previously unheard of could be happening. You know, it's really scary out there. So come dive in your books if you want to. Find media, find shows, find movies that make you feel good, even if it's just for a little bit. But let's not pretend like we are in a vacuum. We are all one. We're all in the same boat. We're in the same ship. And we have to start acting like it. We have to start maintaining this boat. We have to scrape the barnacles off. We have to hoist the sails. We have to get ready for the storms that come that affect every single one of us equally in this goddamn boat. Um, so yeah, just keep that in mind moving forward. And honestly, I was going to talk about book bans for a little bit, but I don't know if this is like the general vibes of this video. This is just me complaining because it's my YouTube channel and I can do what I want. Um, but yeah, book bans are a thing. People, especially in Florida, I follow Reads with Rachel. If you don't, you should follow her. She does book reviews and book recs, but she's also very, very vocally involved in her local school board and follows and kind of bullies people who travel from school board to school board to try to petition to get certain books removed from libraries in the school. And their goal is eventually to go to public libraries as well. These people target books that have like queer themes or stories from uh, minority backgrounds that they see as critical race theory if they dare critique the racist systems that be. It's very dangerous. It's part of this weird regressive need to maintain a system where certain white Christian values are upheld, and it's not even representing the interests of the people who live there. It's not representing the interests of these parents at these schools, but they feel the need to impose their will on other people who you know, aren't even really bothered by these sorts of things. It's ridiculous. So yeah, book bannings are real. And again, book bans are different than just like your fave getting canceled. Okay. People can choose not to read a book if they don't align with certain like political themes in the book or if they don't align with the author's values. That's totally fine. I don't read Sarah J. Maas for several reasons. I don't read Colleen Hoover for several reasons, but that's my right to do so. I don't vibe with them. I don't vibe with things that they said or done in the past. I just don't. So that's my right. That is not the same as book banning. Book banning is limiting access to these books through means like this. And if you want more information on that, I would really reach out to Reads with Rachel. I follow her on Instagram and Threads as well, and she's here on YouTube. And she can give you more information on that than I could. So yeah, I just want to end off with that, like a little call to action. Please get involved with that if that's something you care about. If you care about the diversity of stories, the diversity of authors, and with these sorts of issues, there's going to be a lot of voices that are going to be stifled in the up and coming years. Um, and I fear that I might be one of those people. So also, if you care about that, please buy books from diverse authors. Let the publishers know that this is something you care about. Support independent authors like myself who are just doing their best to get their work out there in spite of everything going on. It's going to be rough out here for a while, but I just want you guys to know that I have your back. You know, uh, I'm going to really be dedicated to trying to build a more sense of community online here. I'm going to try to make posts more frequently, like those little static posts in the community tab for folks. And yeah, I'm just going to try to take things one day at a time. So, yeah. I hope this video made you feel better. I hope you got something out of this video. I don't know. This made me feel better to just sit and talk about for a little bit. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving me space to do so. Um, if you like this video, if you like this video, go ahead and like it. You can also comment down below any sorts of messages of encouragement to myself or others. You can also share this video with a friend if you think a friend might need it, and you can subscribe to the channel. That would help me out a lot in these trying times. Can I offer you an egg in these trying times? Until next time, thanks. Bye.